Bert was born in Luxembourg. He grew up here, and as early as he was 16, he already started to be very politically active in the school where he was. He contested the authority of the school because it was also the years of the French 68, where in Luxembourg had, of course, not so big effects, but in some school, yes, and Bert was already part of it. I say this because it's important to know and to see that Bert Theis was really very early aware of his social and political responsibility as an individual, and he was active in the movements of the 70s here against atomic nuclear power stations, about the church, about he was very leftist movement contesting capitalism and so on, and also he had already then an ecological awareness. You can see it in his very early works. After he started to learn art, painting, of course, but he very quickly was more interested in making collage with founded images and associated with words also. And this is something that he used during the rest of his life, also artistic life. What a very important moment was he started to make situations. I mean, he was more interested in not doing objects of art, but in including the viewer and reflecting about what do we look at when we look at art, and what does it mean to look at art, and what does it say about art, us, or the societies and the society. And these questions all come up in his body of work in the early 90s, where he slowly starts to be more and more active in the public space and in creating situations where the people really are present in a very specific and very special way. And it's the moment in the mid-90s where he's invited to represent Luxembourg at the Venice Biennial. At that time, Luxembourg had no pavilion, and it was actually a disastrous situation for Luxembourg and for Bert as an artist and me as curator. I had the chance. I chose him to be the artist for that time. And actually, Bert responded to the situation in a marvelous way, because he created what he called Potemkin Lock. It was a piece of art which was actually a fake pavilion, because Luxembourg had no pavilion and had not the authorization to have a pavilion in the Giardini, but finally he managed to make this pavilion. And this work of art was a very wide construction where people could enter if they wanted, cross the corridor, and where a rap was sang by Marcel Duchamp. And on the other side, they were in a little garden coming from the big Giardini in a little Giardino, where they could rest and actually think about themselves and the world situation, and not see more pictures, because the Biennale was anyway full of pictures of all kinds. And this this piece of art had a lot of success in Venice at the time, and Caspar Koenig since then invited him to participate to Sculpturen Project of Münster 2 years after, so in '97. And after that, Bert was also in Manifesta 2 in Luxembourg, and he started his international career from then. Bert was a very sharp critic of the society of the spectacle in which we live on. He read a lot of philosophy, Karl Marx, Feuerbach, and Walter Benjamin, but also Guy Debord and all the situationists. And actually Bert considered himself an illegitimate follower of the situationist, not because illegitimate was actually for him a way to say, okay, in some parts situationists were wrong, and these we have to correct. So we have to keep from situationism what is still valuable, and where they were wrong, we should just improve it. So not staying fixed in an ideology. And Bert was always very open in thinking and so. And he was really, starting from the Guy Debord analysis of the spectacle, Bert was aware that images just pollute our world and our life. It's most advertising, it's most fake images that just illustrate and generate a mental pollution for the mind that you cannot think anymore. And that led him to the color white as a symbol of no image. And one of his very first works, thinking and practicing that, was a series of announces in newspapers in the cities where he was invited, and where he would actually buy a place and saying where he would put a white square and say, don't participate to the iconographic pollution. Of course, he had no money as an artist, so the square was very slow. If he would be a billionaire, which he never would be anyway, but he would maybe make a whole newspaper just white, and so people, instead of being overwhelmed by information, would just start think. And we know that it's just opposite what happens in our world of spectacles, because the newspapers are owned by millionaires today, and they just pollute the world with also fake news, just to continue this society of spectacles, which Bert Theis was always fighting against. We started to think about the exhibition together, Bert and me, because I invited him for this show as I was director of Mudam, and so we started to work on it and to bring the ideas together. But then, unfortunately, his health would become very bad, and actually he died much earlier than we could expect. But at that time, we had the main lines of the exhibitions, and what we wanted to show and say was already almost clear. So our work since he left, with Maria Childs, his companion, and also Rob Engel, who is also a good friend, but also his technician. He was the one who helped always Bert to realize to construct also his platforms and pavilions. So we took the original idea, of course, and tried to be as close as possible to the work and the spirit of Bert Theis. We had, of course, to take some decisions without him, and we hope that we took the right just to be correct. But I think in putting together as much as possible of his documents, and documents can be models of his pavilions, but also his letters, the photograph he took, or the installations, or the notes, and so we managed somehow to create an atmosphere of that gives this spirit. What is difficult is to in the body of and that is something that amazes me in this almost 30 years of works, or a little bit less than 30 years. Bert was very a wall character. He was very clear about what he was saying, and the way he thought about art as a tool to transform the society. and not to just represent it, as he used to say, basing on one of the theses of Feuerbach, was that you can see in the wall show that from his very small collage to the very big installations, there is one force that drives him all the time. And to show this one force in the diversity of what he did is probably was a big challenge. I hope we managed, but it seems to work a little bit. So we did some sections where we have his fight with painting, his disputatio with the painting, but also his platforms and then pavilions, his text works, and then all the great activity around the Isola Art Center, which was actually a fight against financial and real estate speculation in the area where he lived in Milano. And so if you look through the videos and the text and all this, and still, even if he didn't want to do objects, because it was not the object of art who is interested in it, but what the object could say and transform the society, even then his models and even his documentation and his writing or his letters are beautiful, and you can see it that sometimes we even show that because it was a complete search for beauty, for intensity, and also for something to say. I think it's an art who says something and is not just representing something. For me, of course, I was lucky that we were friends, Bert and I, from the beginning of his work, at least as an international artist, and me starting as curator at that time. It was actually very important for me to have been close to him during all these years, and I think we did a lot, quite a lot together and at different times. But in working on this exhibition, I really even more now realize how it could be an important message for even, I don't want to make it pathetic, but for the art world, I think artists like Bert Theis are very important, because why are we in the art world? We are not in the art world just to go to fairs and to make parties of course some do just money with it or are interested in parties, but actually the dignity of being a human being in this society in the art of Bert Theis is something that really amazed me. And I think it's not that is probably why so many young artists who met Bert Theis during his teaching, but also during all his performances and his actions that he did in Milano, are still very keen to bring his spirit together in Isola Verde, for instance, or in Rima Flow, because it's just impressive to see how much he could give importance to the person who looks at art. And it's not an art who is there to celebrate itself and say, look, I'm big art and you are just the one who look at me. The art of Bert is just the opposite. He makes the person more important than the artwork. And I think that would be something that we should keep in mind and also nurture and cultivate also very much.